I get those goosebumps every time.
I just have to get the big fella off the bench.
Could this be their last chance now? In it comes, Monster to the front! He scored! Harry Monster scored!
I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too numb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need that line to throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. When you're not around, when you throw that to the side, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. 713 through the 21, yeah, I'm riding. Why they on me outside? Yeah. Slipping low key and high, yeah. It's my water. I get those goosebumps every time, yeah. You come around, yeah. You ease my mind, you make everything feel fine. Worry about those times, I'm way too numb, yeah. It's way too dumb, yeah. I get those goosebumps every time. I need the hype.
Here we go, back again. Great to be back, guys. Welcome to Loaded Mag NUFC, all this housekeeping nonsense. We're just excited, and we're going to get into all of this in just a second. But first of all, I want to know how the boys are, because I've not seen you for a while. How are you? How are things?
All good with me, Pete. I know you've been a bit poorly, but and I haven't even got to say hello to Chris yet because we just come on before we ran the show. But extra smoke for you, Chris. Do you like it?
I love it, mate. I love it.
Yeah,
I don't even need me vape. It's just today. I love it.
Well, I definitely need the brandy because it's been a few days without it. I'm stuck in bed, but well, what a great time to have a little cheeky one and celebrate what's been I think a positive day. In Newcastle United over the course of the transfer window. But that's not all, and we are going to get into that. First of all, welcome to everyone in the chat. Hope you are well. Great to have you all with us. You've all been messaging away on social media, and now you're in here messaging away on the chats. Get your questions in for Andy. We'll bring him in just a second. But of course, if you haven't already, like and subscribe to Loaded Mag NUFC, like this show, all the algorithms and all the rest of it. Chris is on the button again, or is it Naz? I'm not quite sure who, but one of the boys is on the button. Thank you for watching already, and make sure you hit that like and comments for Andy. And look, let's get him in. Our Northeast. Oh, we're doing the sponsors there, so.
Hey, I'm a little bit out of touch. Sorry, boys. Sorry, it's been a while.
So that's more.
We're just all excited, people. It's been a while. We're back in business. But of course, it's an absolute pleasure to welcome Andy Sixsmith, our Northeast correspondent for the Premier League. So let's get him in.
Welcome, Andy.
Hello there, folks. I'm not going to lie. The goosebumps you were bloody singing about it before. The goosebumps on my neck just went down after that intro. It's that Fabian Schär goal against PSG. Every time. It's because he looks magnificent, but also it's a magnificent goal. And I remember at that point, I was sat next to a Frenchman at St. James's Park. I was there literally just as a fan for once, which was wonderful. And the French lad literally just looked at me, looked at the ground, and just walked off and left the ground as a result of it. So it just brought back memories of that. But thank you for having me on anyway. I'll stop ranting.
Welcome, Andy.
Yeah, good to have you on, mate.
Pleasure to have you. Great to have you. It's been a while, actually. We've spoken to you for a while, trying to fit it in around work and international breaks and all the rest of it. It's always difficult, but
it's quiet covering Newcastle anyway, isn't it? These days, nothing ever happens around the club.
Never. It's just run of the mill, isn't it, at the moment, as it always has been. But look, it's a pleasure to have you on. And look, just for anybody that's kind of seen you for the first time, it doesn't know anything about you. What is kind of your role? We said you're the Northeast correspondent. You also do some other bits as well, whether it's sort of Radio 5 Live and others. Just talk to us about what it is that you do covering.
Well, first and foremost, that's the way I absolutely love it. To be fair, that no one ever knows who I am, and that's perfect. That is fantastic because it means I can just walk down the street or go about my business and just not ever get bored. But yeah, so I'm basically Northeast correspondent for Premier League Productions, which sadly doesn't go out in the UK, as I get hounded every single week asking, where is this going? Where's the interview going to be? It's going on every main broadcaster across the world, but the UK, sadly. So regrettably, that's the case, including a nice little chat that we're having with the gaffer tomorrow night at St James's Park, which I'm very, very much looking forward to. We're doing a special feature with Eddie tomorrow night. But we'll try and keep you up to date. So that's my main job. I cover all the press conferences, player interviews every week, match days as well at St James's Park, which have been pretty interesting of late. All of that sort of business. And then work for BBC, like you rightly said as well, Pete, for Final Score when I'm not covering Newcastle games for Premier League, and then 5 Live every now and again when the radio will have my soporific voice sending our listeners and our viewers to sleep. So, but listen, pleasure to be on. Really appreciate the offer. I know you've been saying a while, like, can you make it? And I've been like, no, not now. You finally nailed us down, mate. So congratulations for persistence.
I love it.
I have to admit, we did kind of plan it. We said, yeah, there might be some news happening on Tuesday. That might be a nice day to get it. And we didn't know of that news, but we said, either way.
Some insider knowledge. Premier League, did you?
That's Thursday night. So we have inside knowledge coming in.
Also, I'm a bit pissed off that no one offered me a smoke machine or a brandy, to be honest.
There's always a brandy on offer where I am. So next time I meet with you, you know what's coming.
Chelsea game on Saturday, Pete. So just FYI, if you're around about the strawberry before I go in and do a piece to camera, then
I wish I was there. Otherwise, that would be there waiting for you. You know it would be. But look, it's been, like I said, it's been an interesting day. Lots has happened. Now we always like to kind of run through it, even if it's relatively brief. So let's do that. So we heard the other day, Mark Douglas had mentioned that the votes were coming in today. Everybody said it was likely to be rejected. The likes of Craig Hope, the likes of David Ornstein, a number of other people. They expected it to be sort of dead in the water, and they were linking Ruben Neves to us as a deal that wouldn't happen because the vote wasn't going to pass. Even went on this morning, David Ornstein again saying that Ruben Neves is planning to stay, not going to move. Obviously, nothing could happen at that point, but again, there was the assumption it was going to be rejected. And all of a sudden, this fantastic young lady at the back post, Shearer-esque, should we say?
Yes.
You're going to call him a honey monster there? That's terrible. I'm glad you went with Shearer.
Yeah, no, Shearer at the back post, as always, never misses. And this man is very, very happy. And there was rumours this afternoon from Craig Hope, early indications about the vote not going the way that people expected, and actually they got enough votes. Just to be clear for people that weren't aware, there had to be 14 votes in favour of the kind of blocking of the affiliated transfers, particularly with Newcastle transferring with those 4 main teams in the Saudi Pro League. And then we got a confirmation, and a friend of the channel, Jacob Whitehead, wrote his piece, actually then saying it was 13 votes to 7. In terms of making sure that didn't happen, and that it all kind of fell apart, and therefore we got the Graham Bailey confirmation, and from our point of view at Loaded, we got the classic Oliver rant off the back of that. Not happy with it. We expected it, and I have to say, before I get your opinion, Andy, and the boys' opinions, the 6 legends we've referred to, because people are saying, and I put out there on a tweet earlier, who were those 6 legends that came and stood with us, brothers in arms? We know who they are. Martin Ziegler's put it out there on a tweet not long ago. There they are in fine colour. Sheffield United, Man City, Chelsea, Everton, Chrissy Hall.
Yeah.
I know you're going to be on the box there. Wolves, thank you, Little Dan. And Dave, thank you, our resident Forest fan. Thank you for your support in all of this. So they are the other 6 teams that voted with Newcastle United in order to block that rule coming in by the Premier League. So that's kind of the running order on the situation. Now, Andy, from your perspective, and I know it's kind of conflicted with the role that you do, but what's your initial thoughts from a personal perspective, mate?
My initial thought is, I mean, I would have guessed 6 of those 7 clubs voting against, but I didn't guess the 7th, and that was Everton. I mean, that's kind of come out of the blue, no pun intended. Look, first point, David Ornstein's really wrong. What a guy, what a journalist, one of the very, very best, if not the best out there. And as soon as Orney started to report it last night, your kind of exclamation mark, Metal Gear Solid type graphic pops up above your head and you start thinking that something's going on. The first point I'm going to make is Dan Ashworth is a very, very, very clever man. Now, I have waxed lyrical about Dan since before he joined Newcastle. I thought the job that he did with Brighton was absolutely magnificent. I thought the job that he did with England was absolutely magnificent down at St George's Park. But Dan had a meeting with journalists, a media briefing 2 weeks ago now it was, before the international break, where he talked quite openly, quite at length about, potential deal for Ruben Neves, his feelings about, signing players on loan from affiliated clubs, that kind of thing. Now, I'm sure Dan would turn around and say, it was just a coincidence. And that might very well be. But I think that just put it into the public sphere. And I think that raised a few people's eyebrows and started to make people think. And I'm not saying that it would have changed anything necessarily. We will never, ever know, will we? But I just thought that just set the cat amongst the pigeons a little bit. Look, are we surprised that Chelsea went with that Man City? The one I am surprised that aren't in there, Crystal Palace, because of their links with Lyon. Yeah. I'm a little bit surprised at that one, but generally to miss out by a vote, obviously, like you rightly say, Pete, needing 14 for the majority. It's good news for Newcastle to an extent, but let's not get away from the fact. Was there ever any concrete interest in Ruben Neves? I'm not 100% sure there was. I think Calvin Phillips, as it's been widely reported by colleagues in the media, I think Calvin Phillips is the one that Newcastle are looking at in January. Ruben Neves probably wasn't going to be one of those players. So whether it would have actually affected us in the slightest anyway is anyone's guess. But yes, interesting news today, intriguing news. And who would have thought on a Tuesday night that Newcastle United fans would have been celebrating Everton after our recent arguments with the blue half of Merseyside?
Well, I think that's a great time to come over to our resident Evertonian, or who's linked to a family of Evertonians, should we say? Yes. The Geordie within the Evertonian mix. And Chrissy Hall, great to see you, mate. From your perspective, hearing that news, the Everton are in the mix. Obviously, Andy said it's a bit of a shock. But
I think it's only Pete. Sorry, just to interrupt. I think it's only a surprise because of our recent kind of rivalry with Everton, rather than the ownership. The ownership, obviously, there are links with other clubs anyway there. So I suppose on that nature, it's not a surprise. But in terms of the fans kind of being on the same side, that's what I mean when I say it's a bit of a surprise. No. Sorry, Chris, crack on.
No, perfect.
No, not at all, Andy. I must admit, like you all, I was very surprised to see Everton's name on there. I didn't actually think I'd see that. So that was news to me, seeing that picture. I didn't have a clue. So I'm going to be winding my Everton mate up as soon as I come off this to basically say thank you very much. But yeah, you're right, Andy. I think the links with 777, who are potentially going to buy Everton, obviously that's going to play a major part in that. And that will be why they've, kind of gone with that deal. I'm sure it's not because they want to give Anthony Gordon a helping hand and his new team. But yeah, I mean, I'm just intrigued, lads. I'll be honest. I'm just intrigued now as to where this takes us, because I agree that, Ruben Neves has kind of been flirting with Newcastle and we've kind of been, giving him a little bit of a pat on the back, so to speak. But I just don't know where this is going to take us in terms of who we're going to potentially look at. I mean, Daz, I know you shared in our private chat before the list or the plethora of players, and I'm sure we're going to get into that. But to respond to your question, Pete, in that, how do I take it? I think for me now, already a couple of the lads were speculating about how many we're going to sign and how, will we utilize this window? And let's not forget this block that was proposed. It was a temporary block. And I do actually expect at the end of the season them to kind of clamp down and really put in something more permanent. So it's whether or not Newcastle decide to kind of take advantage and, you know, splash out and just go, right, let's bring 2, 3, 4 players in, or whether they kind of want to, you know, not upset anybody and maybe just take one or something like that. I don't know. But that for me is going to be the interesting thing as to who we actually bring in. And as we know with Eddie Howe, they do a lot of research when it comes to the players that come in, and it's got to be the right player with the right attitudes and the right values. And you don't want to just take someone just on the, you know, the fact that we're down on numbers at the moment. It needs to be the right person. So
great shout, great point, Chris. And it's straight away as soon as anyone starts messing around with transfers and names that get popped into the hat. And I mean, since October 2021. Every single footballer in the world, I think, at some point has been linked with Newcastle United, given the ownership and given the money that, you know, we apparently have available to us. But it comes down to so much more than that. We haven't done a City, we haven't done a Chelsea. We've been very, very calm, very considered, very, very precise with the targets, and that comes down to the likes of Eddie, comes down to the likes of Dan Ashworth, who simply will not sign a player because of their reputation. They sign a player because of their character. They sign a player because of their potential. And I think you can see that in Anthony Gordon. You mentioned there, Chris, a bloke I'm sure that you'll know very, very well, being from Merseyside. And, you know, carried with him a fair bit of baggage, probably coming from Everton and the manner that he left Everton. What a lovely lad. What a great lad. And I think Newcastle fans have, you know, it was a bit of a Marmite signing at the time.
Yeah.
I think Newcastle fans have taken Anthony to their hearts, and rightly so, because behind the scenes, lovely bloke. He is the very epitome of an Eddie Howe sort of signing. Young, great character, going to get along with his teammates, going to fit into the dressing room perfect, but with staggering amounts of potential as well. And I just I never ever saw as good as a player as he is, and as good as a bloke as he is, Ruben Neves. I've interviewed him a few times. I just didn't know if he quite fit into the Eddie Howe ethos in the sense of how Newcastle play, but also how would he fit into that dressing room as well. So, yeah, it is always down to the character. That is the kind of the last exclamation point on any signing that Newcastle make. And I just think there's other players out there that maybe fit it more perfectly than the likes of Ruben Neves, as excellent a player and a bloke as he is.
That's quite perfectly. Just as you were talking about Anthony Gordon, just whip that picture up of you interviewing.
I knew I had one somewhere. Yes.
I was going to say, who's doing the blooming production behind this? They're on it, I tell you.
Andy, we are a production line. We are actually on the ball. And I tell you what, we're going up in the world. It's the first time I've ever heard in, 2.5, nearly 3 years on Loaded Bag and NUFC, the word plethora of signings. You're taking us up in the world. I like it.
I've been gone for a little while, Pete. So I thought, you know what, and I'm obviously trying to impress Andy. So I thought, you know what, I'll expand my vocabulary. You know,
no need, mate. As soon as I saw the smoke, I was impressed by you. So Andy brings with him his own smoke machine to a podcast. I like that sort of style. So
we aim to please, Andy. We aim to please. Dad, what I was going to come to you with, and to be fair, Chris has touched on it as well, with regards to the fact that this now opens the door to Saudi. We were told for the last week and a half it was closed. Now, people are kind of joking around with the fact that we might not even go and sign anyone from Saudi. It's just the fact that we're proving that point. In some cases, some people are saying it was anti-competitive in terms of stopping us to be able to sign it. Some people agreed, some people didn't. Now that window or that door's open, in your opinion, are we going to go and exploit it? I've just read, I was listening at 5 o'clock to Sky talking about it, and they have pictures of Ronaldo, Mane, Benzema, Riyad Mahrez. I know me and Chris are excited about that one, but you know, are we actually, now that window is open, do you think Newcastle are going to exploit it?
Well, first of all, I didn't want to believe it for a while, but like leading up to it, so I didn't even look at who are the players at these 4 Saudi clubs. So the first thing I did was to have a look at all the players that we could potentially sign, and then I got, my head was fried already. It's like the takeover all over again. It's like kid in the sweet shop here. Two of them, So are we going to exploit it up, Pete? I don't know. It has to be on Eddie Howe's terms, though. Really, it's not. I don't want it to see it like pushed upon him. I don't think Anton has been pushed upon him yet, but there will be the temptation, I imagine, from PIF as well to bring in a marquee name, and then that might disrupt what we have, the balance we have in the force today. So I want it to be measured, but I think if we can get an advantage, why not? Well, I think we should definitely do something about it. Sorry, Andy.
Yeah, no, I was going to say, mate, it's a great point to make. Like, there has not been one decision that's gone past Eddie Howe without his say. So, like, the man that you see in interviews who is very, very calm, very, very measured, very, very polite, very, very, on side, there is a ruthless, hard edge to Eddie Howe that, a lot of people, I don't think I've really seen it apart from a couple of flashes, maybe. The man is not to be messed with at all. And I think that if his argument is we don't want to go out to Saudi or anything like that, or get players from Saudi, then they ain't going to go out to Saudi. If he says we want to go to Saudi and get a loan signing in from there, chances are that Newcastle will try it. So Eddie is the kind of a man that this revolves all around. Obviously, it's a group effort. It's a group, that make the decision, but he pretty much gets the final say on matters. It's the reason that they wanted Gordon. Obviously, they chased Gordon for so long. Bruno as well, Dan Burn, Kit Trips obviously was the first. These are the types of signings that Eddie wanted and Eddie got. And that's how it goes at the club at the moment. And I think that's a tremendous way of running things, to be fair, for the club.
Maybe when you are talking to him tomorrow, Andy, because he won't answer any of our questions now, maybe you can deliver one of these, because anytime he hears one of these, he gets annoyed.
That's a loaded question, isn't it?
He's going to know it's a loaded question. Well, you can ask him tomorrow.
I asked him too many of them.
Who would he consider bringing in? He's not going to answer. You know Eddie's answers, but I tell you what, Daz, I know for a fact that my assistant producer and producer are going to be staring at me from over the camera and being like, you are not to ask that question from a Premier League standpoint. So there's no chance I'm good with that. I will leave that to better men than me and better people than me, like Keith and Louise and Luke, etc. on Friday, and Razor. They can ask that question. And I'll ask the big questions like, have you seen this tattoo from a fan that they've got after the Manchester United? They're the important stuff. None of this Saudi malarkey, none of these loans or ownership. Don't mention tattoos.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We haven't forgotten that Joe Linton tattoo. Now he's in the Brazil squad. We haven't forgotten. It's still going to happen. But I just want to steal the chat for just a second, just because it's been this 25 minutes has whizzed by. I know we haven't got you for much longer, Andy, but Donald Franks, who's just subscribed to the channel, thank you for subscribing and welcome to the channel, just said, how have I not seen this before? Really well presented show. We've been here for 2.5 years nearly, maybe a little bit more than that, but thank you for subscribing and pass it along. Tell a friend. We are growing. We are still new at this. We do it outside of our working life, but we love what we do. And we have fantastic guests like Andy and others on to make these shows even more better and well equipped, and a great discussion like this is right now about a really important topic. So I just wanted to put that out there. Donald, thank you, and hopefully we'll see you more in the chat as more shows coming along, because it doesn't end here. But because we've only got you for sort of like 5 minutes, Andy, or so, I would love to throw some questions at you, and I think there has been some questions starred in the chat. Am I right, Daz? I think there has been quite a few actually.
There is slapped up an Eddie Howe laugh, and he should have been slapping that up straight away, shouldn't he? I thought he was a top class producer and everything. Straight up on the screen,
right? I've been promoted. Right.
Sorry.
And I'm going to alter it a bit. So, Rich asked, who's been your favorite Newcastle player to interview? But I'm going to change this question. Sorry, Rich. I'm going to say, who's been your favorite Newcastle player to interview? And would you consider running the Great North Run with them and having a pint afterwards? Who would you like to run the Great North Run with and have a pint afterwards?
Is this like your version of Snog, Marry, Avoid? Who would you prefer to interview? Who would you prefer to run the Great North Run with? And who would you prefer to have a pint with afterwards? That's
a better question. We'll go with that.
Right. Okay. One of the best interviews I did at the club, and it's just because one of his answers was genuinely brilliant, was with Fabian Schär. Not because I got lost in his eyes, but because we were talking about him being a bargain. And he just turned around and went, 3 million. It's a fucking bargain, no? And it was genuinely one of the best answers I've heard from a footballer, where, you kind of get lost in PR and what they're meant to say. So for Fab to just drop that veil a little bit and just go, yeah, I suppose I am a bit of a bargain. Shout out to Sean Longstaff as well, who went into great detail as to why Sven Botman was a Rolls Royce. And when I asked him what sort of car would he be, he turned around and said, I'd be one of those clapped out bangers that just goes on and on and on and on and on, which I thought was a bit dumbing him down a little bit. Favorite one to interview? I always love speaking to Bruno. And I wouldn't run the Great North Run with him. Bruno's, we had a good 10-minute chat just before that interview, actually, about his wedding and about Joe Linton being his best man, which was just a normal one-to-one, person-to-person, human being to human being conversation about it. And it was great crack. So Bruno, probably for the interview, there's a load of them. Who would I run the Great North Run with? I wouldn't run it with Longy, because he'd be absolutely he'd just go and go, wouldn't he? I wouldn't want someone to embarrass me. Maybe I'd run it with Fabi Schär, because he'd just go down injured every 5 minutes, or injured. That's a really good question. Fuck it, Dan Byrne, because it has to be one of the local boys, doesn't it? So Dan, I'd do that with. And not that he drinks pints, but I'd go for a pint with Eddie. I'd go for a drink with Eddie. I'd love to just sit down and go for a dog walk with him or something like that instead. So yeah, I'll have a sit down with Eddie afterwards, I reckon, after the Great North Run, because he'll need to kind of boost my motivation again afterwards too, wouldn't he? And I suppose he'd bring Jason Tyndall. So 2 for the price of 1.
He'd have to.
That's it. Yeah.
They're never within 5 yards of it, outside of 5 yards of each other. So yeah, definitely Eddie and JT to be afterwards, and then Dan Burn to run the Great North Run. Not at the minute though, because he's obviously crocked his back.
Yeah.
So I'd beat him.
Yeah.
Next question. This one's from Lisa, and a question for Andy: have you heard any rumors about Man United showing interest in Dan Ashworth?
Even if they are showing interest, good luck, Manchester United, is all I'll say. Dan is very happy at St James's Park at Newcastle. He's got a project, and I tell you what, that man's taking this club places.
Yeah,
I think that says it all.
There was a piece out a couple of weeks ago saying that Man United were looking at him as an option. I think they've already kind of earmarked somebody now that they want when Jim Ratcliffe does come in. But it was talked about, but as you said,
absolutely. And Lisa, completely right. I saw that rumor, but honest to God, Manchester United might be looking at Dan Ashworth, but I'm looking at a year sabbatical in Morocco. So neither of those things are going to happen. I don't know why I chose Morocco out of anywhere. I want to go to New Zealand rather than anywhere else. But
I might have another place for you to go. Andy. But because
Ireland.
It comes from Kev. Yeah, maybe Ireland. Yeah, you're working anytime. Question for Andy: do you know a place that is barren, deeply hostile environment, and is barely fit for human habitation?
Ant and Decker fucked up every single road out there, haven't they? After what they came up with the other night, and just because you know what, right? I might cover Newcastle, but I obviously work for Final Score 5 Live, and I cover Sunderland, Borough, all the North East clubs. I'm one of those rare Newcastle fans that actually really bloody likes Sunderland as a club. I've always found them to be absolutely brilliant to deal with. Same with Borough. So, no, you're not getting me on that one, Kev. Good luck. Yes, actually, barren, deeply hostile environment. Yeah, London. There you go.
Agree.
I don't disagree with that.
Yeah, I agree. 110%. We're great answer.
Sorry to London people watching.
I work there a lot, so yeah, I totally agree with that.
It's just not my place. Some people love it. Like my partner really likes it, and I totally appreciate that. Loads of people do, but I'm just not one of those people. Really prefer up north.
Yeah. Maybe one more before Andy has to go.
Yeah. One more, great.
Let's go for Tom's question. Tom asked the question: do you think Newcastle will go big in January with the recent injuries we are having?
This is going to be such an Eddie Howe answer, but I'm going to say it anyway. Define big. It depends on. Yeah, I think they have to sign at least 2, maybe 3. Would be my guess. I think anything less than that, and I wouldn't call it a poor window because I don't think Newcastle have poor transfer windows these days, but they certainly need to bolster. I mean, Christ, take your pick. Everyone's going down at the moment, aren't they? The one weird position that they don't need to bolster necessarily, even though Sandro has been out, maybe one new signing, obviously, in that position to replace Sandro, but they don't need to make the wholesale changes that we probably did to our midfield last season. There was a huge debate over the midfield needing 3 new signings. Longy, Joe Willock, Joe Linton, obviously Bruno's in there too. Lewis Miley's been blooded quite easily. Elliott will be back in a month and a half or so. You know, there's quite good options in that midfield. Yes, we need one more. And I think Calvin Phillips is obviously on Newcastle United's radar. I think they'll be looking at maybe 2 more plus Phillips or plus a midfielder. So if that's your definition of Big Tom, that wouldn't be a bad January for me, but they certainly need to bolster. I mean, everyone knows that of the injuries that Newcastle has had. Newcastle have had this season and currently. So, yeah, it'll be an interesting window, but I can guarantee that we are, as I know some of our journalists get absolutely panned, shall we say, on YouTube, on Twitter, etc. But the Northeast journalists try our fucking damnedest to get answers out of Eddie Howe. But the man, I would never want to play poker against him. So if we can get answers out of Eddie, I would be surprised.
Andy, just to tag one little very quick question
Yes,
on at the end there. Can you see us signing that third striker that we've spoken about now for the last, 12, 18 months?
In January?
No.
I think we need to. I think we need to strengthen other places. I genuinely, I'd be surprised if we splashed out on a striker. If it was going to be a striker, I think it would be a versatile option that could play wing or centre.
Yeah.
And if it was a striker, I think we'd either be looking at a loan or very, very low fee for one. I can't see them going big on a striker. We went big on Alex. Obviously, if once he stays fit, I think Alex will be a tremendous, but he already has been, but it'll be a tremendous signing for us. Callum obviously is showing his worth. Obviously his hamstrings causing him problems at the minute, but as soon as he gets fit again, and if he can go on a run of goals like he has done since, April, where he's had like 20 goals in 20 goals in 24 appearances or something. He's only behind Erling Haaland. I think their options are there. And then he's got obviously Anthony who can play up top as well. So yes, it's not ideal at the minute with the injuries, but I genuinely can't see them splashing out big on a striker. There's other positions to fill.
Andy,
you can bring me on in February when we splash out 75 million on a striker. I have been wrong a lot of times. I don't know why
that bit.
Yeah. Honestly, Andy, I wish we had more time with you. We have to get you back on again at some point down the line. We'll be in touch because it's been a fantastic chat. I know the people in the chat have loved it. We've loved it. We could probably go on for another half an hour chatting to you about various different things, but absolute pleasure. I know you're really busy, so you've got to go, but absolute pleasure to have you on. Where can people find you?
Well, not in the UK, but basically we will put, Newcastle obviously use our material now, so via the clubs, so any interviews, etc. I'm pretty sure the interview with Eddie will be going up, that we're sitting down with him at St. James's tomorrow night. I imagine Newcastle might use that, but anywhere around the world on the likes of Fox, Star Sports, Super Sports in South Africa, NBC, if you're anywhere in the world watching Premier League productions, then the chances are you might be unfortunate enough to see my face. Otherwise, Final Score every other Saturday, usually at Sunderland, or 5 Live as well. But if not, catch me on Twitter. I'm always around on Twitter because I'm a hermit.
Pleasure, mate. Absolutely.
Nice one. Man. Thanks very much, Andy. And catch you soon, right?
Have a nice
evening,
evening.
Andy. Thank you.
See you soon.
Top man. Great to have Andy on. Really, really good chat. And he's a fantastic guest because just not one of us. He just tells it as it is. So yeah, made for a really, really good discussion. But we're not going anywhere. We're not going anywhere.
Oh, no.
We are still here. We're not leaving. Yeah, we're not leaving. And so, Chris, you brought a really interesting discussion up because, look, let's be honest, this vote today is massive because it opens up so many possibilities. We're coming towards the end of November. We've got just over a month now until the transfer window opens. There is so much to explore. So I think you might have put in the chat, Chris, if I'm right in thinking, a group of players. Am I right? I think
yeah, absolutely, mate.
I don't want to talk about that just a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, I nixed this off Daz, so Daz helpfully put this in the group before, and I thought I looked through the brand and I seen there was no pictures, and I thought I didn't know whether there was an image to show it, so I thought, while
Not
we're
enough
talking,
pictures, not enough space. Sorry,
I
Chris.
know, that's it, mate. No,
Too many
exactly.
players.
I know there's loads of pictures and stuff in there, so I thought I'd use that information that you got, Daz, and just thought I'd throw them in the chat. So obviously for Al Hilal, the options could be, and obviously I've only mentioned the 4 clubs that are PIF owns. So for Al Hilal, as you can see there, we've got Ruben Neves, we've got Menega, we've got Koulibaly, we've got Milinkovic-Savic, we've got Malcolm, Neymar, and Mitrovic. So they are the options for Al Hilal. What is the? Oh yeah, sorry, thanks, Daz. Then we've got Al Alhi or Al Alali. Yeah. Then we've got Mendy, we've got Firmino, we've got Mahrez, we've got ASM, whoever that guy is, and then we've got Gabriel Veiga and also Frank Kessie. So I know they've got some real.
I would love Frank Kessie at Newcastle. I wanted him when the takeover was meant to go through in 2020 because he was on the verge of leaving AC Milan at that point. He wanted to go, and obviously Barcelona eventually.
Yeah, he went to Barca, didn't he?
I think he went for free. Yeah, he went for free, and then they went through that period where they thought he might have to go on a free from Barca because they couldn't afford him and all the rest of it. And then when they played him, he barely kicked a ball. Anyway, he is quality. But
no, he would be good. Then we've got Al Nassr. So we've got Ronaldo, who's been constantly linked to Newcastle. I can't see that one happening, but anyway, Cristiano Ronaldo. We've got Talisca, we've got Ospina, we've got Brozovic, Tellez, Pete, Seko Fofana. Anyone?
Please. If there's ever a chance to get the boy, get it. I wish Lee was here now because Lee would come.
We have to get Lee on if we get him.
Yeah, we just have to wax lyrical about this boy.
Yeah. And then we've got Sadio Mane and Aymeric Laporte. So again, some really good options there for Al Nassr. And I think there's one more club, Daz.
There is. Here we go.
Al Ittihad. So there we've got Benzema, we've got Kante, Romarinho, Jota, not Diogo Jota, the other Jota who was at Celtic, and Fabinho. So imagine getting Fabinho. Oh,
the feud.
We'll put the smoke back on.
Yeah, they'd just be raging. But you know what? Going through those names, I mean, it'd be interesting to hear you lads. Let's say you could only have 2. I'd be interested to hear who your 2 would be. But also as a little added question, out those 4, as an added question, how do you think Newcastle approach this? Because at the end of the day, as I said earlier, this is only a temporary block which has been not passed. I still believe at the end of the season, the Premier League will look to bring in a rule and go, right, enough's enough now. You know, it's not happening anymore. So how do Newcastle play it? Do we try and, stay good, stay, either don't utilize the market or maybe just have 1 or 2? Or do we think to ourselves, do you know what, let's take advantage of this. We've got the opportunity to, got a few players out there for the long while. Let's go and get 3 or 4 of them and let's really bolster ourselves to try and get that top 4. So what would you lads do, and what do you think will happen?
I think if we do something, they'll come and screw us when they change the rules, and if we don't do something, they'll come and screw us when they change the rules. So go for it. I wouldn't go mad though. And get this is what blew my head earlier on today. I started looking at all these names and I go, oh my God, I need to lie down here. It's like a transfer deadline day, but throwing everything at you. And like, we might bring in none of these guys, but the options and are endless there. I know I still stick with what I said before. I'd like us to bring in right-sided centre defender, striker that can support Isak and have move Wilson to the 3rd. But that was buying outright, and then I wanted a midfielder on loan. But now I don't know, because Yeah, and when the other thing is, and we haven't even touched on this yet, is the whole sponsorship thing that we're not going. There's not going to be as much scrutiny as the thought it was going to come in, that you'd have to have 3 matching values to whatever sponsorship deal you get or whatever like that. So that's out the window as well. So that makes life a lot easier, which was ridiculous for everybody, that kind of rule. So yeah, and we've got the Adidas money coming in, and as well, are starting to trickle in, or it's on the horizon. So we know it's going to be there. So yeah, it's a difficult decision. I'd love to be in some of those meetings though, where they're discussing what they'll do next.
It'd be so fun. So fun. Funnily enough, I was looking then, Daz, when you were saying about the players, and there's actually, tell me if I'm wrong here, boys. Oh, no, yeah, there is one. I was going to say there isn't a right-sided centre-back, but there's Koulibaly. He's the only right-sided centre-back that I can see, because you've got Laporte, but I think he's left-sided centre-back. But Pete, who would tickle your fancy? Maybe a stupid question, but who would be the 2 that you would look at, or where you think we'd best utilise?
Well, the first thing is that I think you mentioned before Daz answered about is it a case of we box smart or we go crazy? I'll be honest with you, I don't care anymore. I don't care. I don't care about any other team in the Premier League. I don't care about their feelings. I don't care about anything else. Because they don't care about us. They've proven that over the last 18 months that they don't care about Newcastle United. So why should we care about them? In order to be the best, you have to be ruthless. And the top teams of the last 7-8 years have been Man City and Liverpool. And they've both been ruthless with their managers, with their approach, with their players, with their style of football. And if we want to be at the top, we have to be ruthless. And for me, I think our club has handled this absolutely perfectly. And this now opens up an opportunity, albeit for just this window, as you mentioned, Chris. This is not long term. They'll try and put something in legally. I think they might struggle, though, something legally to stop this long term. But I don't care anymore. I don't care. Go out and buy 3-4. Not buy 3-4, loan 3 or 4. We can. It's been proven. We can do it. We're allowed to. And we're allowed to, out of England, loan as many players as we want to. Let's use this opportunity now. Of course, we need to make sure that Eddie Howe's happy with these players and he wants them in. But for me, it's an interesting one because I've been thinking about this the last few weeks in terms of players that we sign, regardless of whether it's Saudi or not. And I actually think we need some experience in this team. I think we need some experience. We need some leaders in this team to take us through and navigate us through what's going to be a difficult season for us. It's already proven to be. We've handled it well, but I think we need some leaders that can come on the pitch and have the quality, but the leadership to get us through. And, someone like Seko Fofana for me in midfield, yes, he's not a number 6 traditionally. He can play there. But he can also be a number 8. But what he is, at Lens, he was a captain. He was a leader of men. He almost single-handedly dragged them to Champions League football. He's 28 years old, so he's a little bit older. But you get him on loan for 6 months, you are getting a player that's ready for Premier League football. And he is a leader. He will drag us through when we need it to get us to where we need to be. He can score goals. He'll run all day for you. He's fantastic in a tackle. He has everything. And my face was about Seko Fofana, not Ronaldo. When I saw his list come up, I was very excited about that because I never thought that could be an option, but it could genuinely be an option. And he hasn't played a lot of football for Al Nassr, not as much as he wanted to. He had a little bit of an injury, so that he's been rested here and there, so he could be fit and raring to go. I think you might agree with this one, Chris, but if we're going to go anywhere else...
I know what you're going to say.
I'd be having a conversation with Riyad Mahrez. I'd be having a conversation with Riyad Mahrez and saying, you fancy coming and being a legend like Hatem Ben Arfa was at Newcastle, or a hero, should we say, a fan favourite, and coming in and taking the mantle off Miggy for for 6 months or so, or certainly taking the pressure off him. Imagine Mahrez on the right, Gordon, Isak through the middle, the creativity, the goals, you got Seko Fofana that can score. You're adding unbelievable quality there, but you're adding experience. Riyad Mahrez has been there, done it, got the t-shirt with Leicester and with Man City. He knows how to navigate himself through a difficult time of the season. You go and get those two players, you're laughing. And
I've got another.
Go for it. Go on.
Sorry, Pete, just to interrupt. Just another take, and not so much the players we're going to bring in, but the time we bring them in. There's going to be no negotiating here. We can bring them in on the 1st of January if we wanted to. So yeah. I think, what's the point in waiting until the end of the transfer window to bring in the loan? Get it straight away. And even get them over here before then, if you wanted. So I think we will know early doors if we're bringing some of these players in. I don't see, it doesn't make any sense to wait. That's what I'm going to say.
No, I agree. It does. I agree because you're right. The negotiating part, it should just be a case of picking up the phone and going, "Do you fancy coming to Newcastle?" And they say yeah, and then you just go, right, well, let's just talk about the percentages of the wages. That's it. There's nothing else to discuss. So it should be a fairly quick deal. And I agree, Daz. I think if we get 2 weeks into the transfer window, I'd go as far as to say I would then think that it's less and less likely that we're going to bring in anyone from Saudi. I think if we do, it will be early doors and it'll be like, right, let's get some football into them. Let's beef the squad out, bring them in. What I also wanted to ask you boys as well, and this is what I was thinking when I was looking through all the names. Do you think there'll be any pressure whatsoever from the likes of PIF to kind of say, "Oh, Eddie, I know, Eddie may go, I want him and him," but do you think there will be any pressure at all from PIF to go, "Yeah, but we want you to have him because there's your stellar sign and there's your player that's going to put Newcastle on the map even more so than what we are at the moment in Saudi." Because if one of these well-backed Saudi clubs, if we got like a Neymar or a Ronaldo or a really big hitter, and they came and just did 6 months at Newcastle, does that then expand the global brand, so to speak? Will they say to Eddie Howe, "I want you to take him"? Do you think that's a possibility? Do you think Eddie Howe would say no to it?
This is what I was talking about, the balance. The balance here is making sure Eddie Howe is on board with everything. I don't want to become a case that he's a marquee type name is in a way forced upon him. So that's my only worry with it. So I think those discussions will take place. They probably had to, even though they said, Dan Asher said that they thought this is going to be blocked, and they've talked about this already. They know what they'd do if they could, and now it's just tweaking everything else to get that balance on that side. But yeah, who knows how it's going to play out.
Do you, Pete? Sorry for firing all these questions at you, Pete. Do you think that Eddie Howe, as a manager, forget about the football side for the moment, but purely as a manager, do you think Eddie Howe would reject? Say if PIF go to Eddie Howe and go, "Listen, Neymar wants to come." Do you think Eddie Howe, as a manager, as a coach, would reject that opportunity, given that it's a loan and given that they may say, "Listen, it's not going to be." Oh yeah, sorry, John Gandhi. It's probably a bad example to say Neymar, but sorry about that. But like a real top name, like a Benzema, for example, and Eddie Howe gets the chance to work with him for 5 months, and he just goes, "Listen, it's not a permanent deal, but it will," and it also gives the players the chance to regularly train with an elite player. Do you think Eddie Howe rejects that chance?
I don't think he rejects that chance. No, he'll want to know that player's got the right attitude to play for Newcastle. He's got to be able to fit into a system. He's got to fit into the way in which Newcastle play, the personality. Everything has to fit. Like coming in and bringing in, I love the guy, but bringing in a Cristiano Ronaldo isn't going to help Newcastle United because he's not the right fit. He's not the right fit for us. Equally, Sadio Mane is not the right fit for us. He hasn't got the right attitude to play in this Newcastle team. 3 years ago, maybe, not right now. So there's a lot that Eddie Howe will have to take in. It's not just about the ability of the player. Has he got the right mentality to fit into this group of players and make it work? That's why I think Ruben Neves has been linked so hardly, because he wants to clearly come back to play in the Premier League or play in Europe. I think he would have been interested in coming to Newcastle had the Saudi deal not even ever materialized. I think he was always interested in Newcastle. Little Dan likes to remind me every day that he wasn't interested in Newcastle. He didn't want to come. But the reality is that it was already said, even last January, that he was interested in coming to Newcastle as an option. So players like that, definitely, I think Second for final would love to come and play in England and prove himself after he kind of didn't make it work as a young lad at Man City. He'd love to come back and prove himself in the Premier League. And there's other players. Riyad Mahrez, he's already said the other week he's still got more to give in the Premier League. He'd love to come back and play. So there's those things there, and I think they're kind of why I've said those sorts of players, because they would fit the Newcastle mould in the way in which we play. And I think Eddie Howe would take them. To answer your question, I actually think I would be shocked if those conversations haven't happened today. Now the ruling's in place. I wouldn't be surprised if Dan Ashworth's gone on the blower to Eddie Howe and gone, right, okay, it's confirmed. Get looking, get researching, get thinking about what players that you might want to take. You might only want to take one from there. Well, if you could get one player from the Saudi League, because it's like a lot of people on social media have kind of said, like, oh, it'd be funny if we didn't even sign anyone. And I kind of said the same, sort of tongue in cheek. But why wouldn't you? Why wouldn't you take advantage of something where you could get, in some cases, a world-class player or a top elite ready Premier League player to come to your club, albeit for 6 months? You might have to pay a hefty fee with regards to covering wages or whatever it might be. But why wouldn't you get that quality of player to come in and, like Dad said, heighten the profile of your club and let the Saudi people that have been following that player and loving that player at that club, whoever it is, to go, oh, that player's gone to play for Newcastle. Let's go and watch them every week now. And all of a sudden, you've got thousands of new Newcastle followers. It's the perfect scenario for the club if they want to build their fan base far and wide, which is what they ultimately wanted, what they wanted to do. Like, it makes perfect sense. Now, to get two would be even better from one player from one club, one player from another. You're then doubling potentially your amount of fans that are going to then start turning and watching Newcastle United play. So it's a perfect scenario, and I just don't see anything other than we getting at least one player from Saudi. Now the opportunity is there, but I do think we will spend money. I do think a permanent player will come in, but it won't be from Saudi. I think we'll buy from Europe, and I genuinely think our centre back will be the player that we sign permanently. I think it'll be one of our options. Now, who that is, I'm sure we'll talk about it as the weeks go on. Who that could well be. We've talked about options on Thursday last week, Daz, but I think if they're going to plough their money anywhere on a permanent signing, it will be for a centre back.
Do you know what else is interesting? Oh, sorry, Daz. I was just going to say, do you know what else is interesting about this? The fact that when we're talking about these players, like you mentioned then, Pete, about having a player having the opportunity to come and play in the Premier League, especially for those players who've not been to the Premier League, so they'd like to give it an opportunity. What we can't forget as well is the fact that there's no financial risk for the player. So if we were signing them permanently and they were on 400 grand a week at Saudi Arabia, and we were like, yeah, we'll give you 100 grand a week, you may have a not disinterested player, but a player who's kind of like, I'm taking quite a big wage cut to move to Newcastle, whereas they're still going to get the same salary that they're getting in Saudi Arabia, but we're just paying a portion of that. So if you're saying to a Benzema, or you're saying to a, I'm trying to think of some other players like, Milinkovic-Savic or someone like that, come and have 5-6 months in the Premier League, give it a test. It's not going to cost you any money because you're still going to get paid your salary that you normally get at Saudi Arabia, but you get that opportunity to come and test yourself in the Premier League. And then they may come and then they may hit the ground running, really enjoy it, and then think, actually, I wouldn't mind going there permanently. But then we'd say, well, okay, we'd like to sign you permanently, but you're going to have to take a severe wage cut. But when it's on loan, we haven't got that problem.
Yeah, I'm going to get in here on Tim C's comment in 1 second. But I just want to say another thing is that, yeah, Chris, you went through the 4 clubs there. But the other thing is, hey, if we didn't like those lists, maybe they want to sign someone else. But instead of going straight to Saudi, they could come to Newcastle for 6 months first. So, yeah, that's always an option as well. And a way around financial fair play. But Tim, he said it twice now, so I want to bring it up. And he says you have to bear in mind the tax implications regarding the players from Saudi clubs. Now, I think this situation is, from what I read on Twitter, this must be true, is that so the players have to stay in Saudi, play in Saudi for 2 years, and then they don't pay any tax. But if they were going on loan to another club, they're still employed by the same employer. We're just paying a portion of their wages or all their wages, whatever the case may be. Or so then they're technically still with that employer. So I don't think they would have that tax implication. And I'm sure there's ways around that as well, if you think about it.
And not only that, Daz, I'm assuming, correct me if I'm wrong, I'm not a tax expert. I did used to work in the tax office, but I'm not a tax expert. But I think as well, if they say that ruling is in place and you've got to be in Saudi Arabia for 2 years, if they're on, say, a 4-year contract and they then spend 5 months in England, in Newcastle, when they go back, as long as they stay for another 19 months, then that 2-year rule wouldn't apply anyway, because they'd have already done the 2 years, so they could get round it anyway.
Yeah, just to add, some of the players might not be bothered by it. Like they might genuinely not care. Like who's to say that the club are not the Saudi club are not looking after them and are covering that potential tax that they might additionally have to pay? Who's to say that Newcastle don't cover that? Like, who's to say that's not an option? Like Jota, for example, from Al Etihad, he's only been there for a few months. He already wants to leave, and it doesn't seem like he's bothered about the tax. He wants to come back to Europe to play football. So whether he comes to us or not, he's likely to move back because he's already talked about as being unhappy. Neves is another one that's talked about wanting to play Europe. And I know David Ornstein talked about him being happy, blah, 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 this, that, and the other. But you're telling me that today's ruling at the Premier League has not got him turning his head. You're telling me that the fact that he can now potentially come back to England is not turning his head and making him think there's an option to come back here. The lad's 26 years old. Like, he's not 32, 33. He's not a Fabinho at the end of his career.
No.
This guy has got his whole career left of him. You've got 6-7 years at the top level that Ruben Neves can play football. Like, he took the bag. He took the big money. And look, I don't begrudge him for that. I don't think any of us, if we were in that position, I think we would seriously consider taking that sort of money. It's life-changing for generations, not just his life, but for his family, for his children and his children's children. Like, thinking long term, but he'll still get big pay, even if he does leave and come on loan for 6 months and then eventually leave in the summer. So there's those players that might not necessarily care about that are willing to make that move, and it's something we need to keep in mind, really, because I've got a feeling that some of these players moved just to get out of the clubs that they were at. Ruben Neves would have found it very difficult to make a move to the Premier League had he stayed at Wolves. They would have made it difficult for him, but the fact that they got a big fee for him and they got him out of the Premier League made it a win-win for Wolves. So they didn't lose him to a Premier League where the fans got on their back. They moved him to Saudi, whereas outside it's all okay. So if he then comes back to the Premier League, it's not on their hands. And it sounds weird, it sounds crazy, but for me, I understand that. I get it. I was the same with ASM. I loved the guy. I didn't want him to leave, but now knowing that he was in Saudi, I don't care. He might go to.
Would you take him back?
I wouldn't, no, because I have been massively impressed with Anthony Gordon. Anthony Gordon's proven what we wanted in a player. Anthony Gordon's got 5, 6, 7 goal contributions this season, already more than ASM. For me, I've set a target myself for what I think Anthony Gordon's capable of. I think Anthony Gordon could be getting double figures in goals this season. That's my opinion. I think he's capable of getting double figures in goals. Goal contributions, he should be looking at 15 goal contributions at least this season. ASM's never done that. So I wouldn't take him back. But I'm quite happy with him being over in Saudi. If he goes to Serie A or back to France or whatever, great. I just didn't want to see him in the Premier League. I'm comfortable with that now. We've moved on. But yeah, I just think that some of them may not necessarily care. I think some of those big boys, the Benzemas and the players like that have got big money, talking £200-300 million of their like a year or whatever it is on their contract. They're the ones that are probably going to be massively hit. So they're probably going to stay. But some of the others may not. And they're the ones that Newcastle could potentially sweep up. But it's going to be fun, boys. It's going to be fun.
It is going to be fun. Now, we've gone at it from one angle, but then the other angle, David Cook says, we were interested in Vega, but the fact that he went to Saudi, is he the right character? And that's money driven. So that's going to be another factor as well. And I know someone had a comment earlier about a no dickhead policy that Newcastle run with as well. But I'm sure they'll have the information readily available to them on those guys' characters as well. So it's nothing will be hidden. Let's say if we were to do, and again, it is only on loan. If you know, so it's only for a short period of time.
But you're right, Daz. And I get that no dickhead policy and question them for going for money, this, that, and the other. Like, I'm not questioning these players on going for money, like, because it's life-changing money. Like, I'm not. Even at 20 years old, Vega going and playing in Saudi, I'm not. But for the point that I've just made, I can also see another angle to it. And I've just said, Vega's another one. He would have not been let go lightly to a European team. He wouldn't have been. Now, Vigo got a massive fee for him, a big fee, probably bigger than they would have got elsewhere. And for the age that he's got, and the fact that he's out of sight, out of mind, is perfect for Vigo. But I think he would have wanted that move to get himself a year or so in Saudi, so he can move back to Europe to a club that he wants to go to. So that it could work both ways. So don't always see it as a negative. These players going to Saudi and earning this big money. They might have needed to do it in order to get out of the club that they're at, because you know what it's like. Clubs make it difficult for players to move sometimes. How difficult has it been? Like, Mohamed Salah would have been in Saudi right now if it wasn't for Liverpool kind of twisting, like turning the screw and making him stay. Like, he's happy to stay. He loves Liverpool to a point, but he wanted to be a god. He's going to be a god when he moves to Saudi. He's going to be an absolute god over there. Like, so we can't forget that. So teams do make it difficult sometimes. And who's to say that Vigo didn't make it difficult for Vega? Who's to say that Neves wasn't made to or had a difficult moment in order to be able to leave Wolves? So we went to Saudi. And who's to say that these guys are not really keen in coming back? Frank Kessie is another one. The only way to get out of Barcelona, move to Saudi. Get a move to Saudi, may want to come back to Europe, to a team that he wants to play with. Otherwise, Barcelona would have charged crazy fees for him, and other teams might have gone, yeah, not for me, too expensive. Now he might be a viable option. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be really, really interesting. Not just for Newcastle, because Saudi have already said, and this is something we need to remember. Saudi have already said they're going to go again in January. They're planning on buying. They're planning on making these signings and making more signings from Europe in January. So who's to say that they don't go and sign somebody? Like, for example, Casemiro has been linked. Bruno Fernandes has been linked. I'm not saying these players are going to go, but they're just two examples. Who's to say that they don't go to a team and that releases a player like a Vega or a Frank Kessie or a Ruben Neves to say, okay, we're going to get this player in. You can now move. You can go elsewhere. Who's to say that's not the case? It could potentially happen.
Another point from Andy Ford says, I think we all need to take a chill pill. Apart from Neves, there's none of the Saudi players that would improve our squad. I'm not sure about that. Even Neves is debatable. He's not Eddie Howe fit and would take time. Yeah. I'm sure that there are players there that would improve our squad. If we look at that list again. If we were to pick one from each club, that would improve our squad.
Yeah, I think that's doing a disservice to Ruben Neves. Ruben Neves is a supremely talented midfielder. To say that he wouldn't improve our squad is for me, I don't agree with that. Ruben Neves is a supremely talented footballer, Portuguese international, can play number 6 and play it very well, a position that we wanted to be filled, that would improve and enhance our team. Because we only really have Bruno that plays there. Tonali's out until obviously August. He's a quality player. There's no doubt about it. Ruben Neves changes our midfield. But so does Seko Fofana. And it's easy to say because if you've not watched Seko Fofana, you won't understand what he gives. You put Seko Fofana in a black and white shirt, Newcastle fans love him. Newcastle fans love him. Guaranteed. Because what he brings to every team that he plays for, under the lights at St James's Park, you look at what we put together against PSG, he would be at the forefront of that. He would command that every single game because that's what a player like Seko Fofana is about. Ruben Neves has got the elegance. He's an elegant footballer. He's different. Whereas Seko Fofana is a good footballer, but he's a leader. He's a leader among men. He's a battering ram. Frank Kessie is an absolute bull. He is like a Tiote, but with footballing ability. Like, you're looking at these players make Newcastle a million times better because they offer quality in opportunity to change the team around 100%.
Just a reminder to people as well to smash that like button, and if you're listening along and you haven't got yourself into the chat yet, to activate the chat, you hit the subscribe button and you'll be able to chat away with your fellow chatters. Lads, I've got a question for you, and because I haven't read anything about this, but there's a lot of talk here about Spurs. And Tim asked me thoughts on the Defoe illegal agent case from 15 years ago, which could put Spurs in deep water and points deduction. And there's a few more. Right?
It was today. So I don't know if you mind me just
Oh, go for it, mate. Go for it.
Just briefly, I don't know all the intricate details, but basically what it was, when Defoe moved back from Portsmouth to Spurs, so we're going back years now. We're going back a long time. But it's been
Harry Redknapp hanging out the car window, time.
Back in the Harry Redknapp days, apparently Tottenham, Harry Redknapp, and more importantly, Jermaine Defoe, they used an illegal agent to make the deal happen, which under the rules, and I could be wrong on here in terms of the finer details, so someone in the chat, please correct me, under the rules, that is a serious offence and it could cause points deduction, in an extreme relegation from the league, and a huge fine as well. So it's come out, and this is why a lot of the teams are panicking now, because a lot of teams are looking back at their history and going, were we on point with everything that we've done before? Because it looks like now that the Premier League have got a kind of a feeling for it. The Premier League are, and this is a really interesting point, and this is why I think what I think is that it was announced recently that there was plans afoot for an independent regulator, which Gary Neville has been calling for a long time. And I think it was King Charles, I should say, announced that he something to do with an independent regulator was going to be being brought in at some point, and there was confirmation of that. Now, that changes the Premier League, and the Premier League then have a lot of power taken away from them when there's an independent regulator. So in response to that, it looks like to me and to a lot of other people that the Premier League are now trying to put their ducks in a row and show they can handle things themselves and they can put things in place. And whereas they've been really lax with teams in the past, Everton, case in point, get them 3 years without punishment, without points deduction. They'd have been in the Championship right now. Had that been efficient and done properly, as the Premier League should have, all of these things and other things, you go back with Tottenham, you go back with Liverpool, you go back with Man United, all the other things before, now they're all of a sudden prim and proper. And they're now looking like they're doing things properly. So this is why the Everton points deduction came in. This is why all of a sudden we're hearing of the Tottenham situation with Defoe going back 10, 12 years, 15 years maybe. I can't remember how many years it was. It's a long time ago. And it can still be action now, even from that length of time ago.
Oh.
And it seems like this is a reaction to the independent regulator being announced that it could well be put in place. And it's something they're seriously considering. And so where it looked like maybe it might just be a story and it might disappear, it genuinely looks like something that the Premier League may well action. We don't know what the punishment is going to be right now, but hey, it's a lot of teams now. A lot of teams are going back through their finances through finer detail. They're going back through it, and there's a lot of Tottenham fans that are in the open saying, it's nothing, it'll be fine. But in secret, they are shaking. They are worried because things could be afoot big time. I'm not saying that it'll be announced in the next 2-3 months. It might not be even announced by the end of this season, but who's to say that it's not implemented by next season, just like the Everton was?
He didn't use that agent when he was Sunderland moves as well, did he? By any chance?
Wouldn't surprise me.
Let's see. I think we'll maybe we should revert back to the. Let's go on to other Newcastle topics, Peter, because I know you have a few other topics there, and maybe we can close out with more discussion around the voting today. But I think maybe we cover some more other topics that you had.
Yeah, I mean, first and foremost, we knew this anyway, and I was going to bring this up with Andy, but we had a really good discussion and it ran over, but it was confirmed this was on the 16th of November. This was the current, at that time, injury list. Now, we know it went up to 14 with Newcastle, so for any club or any opposition fans club kind of not showing sympathy or saying that their club is just as bad as ours in terms of injuries, you've only really got the likes of Arsenal that could probably argue that. That tells its own story. And you look at some of the other teams that may be fighting with us in positions that have not had the same type of injuries. You look at the likes of Aston Villa, for one. You look at the likes of West Ham that are in and around us on 0. You know, Chelsea, for example, Chelsea have apparently had loads and loads of injuries, but nowhere near what we've been suffering with. And we're still ahead of them in the Premier League. And so, you know, that was a really interesting one. But I wanted to get your opinions on this, and I'm just going to put it up on the screen because it's basically the form of us home and away this season, and it's for all the Premier League teams. So it gives you an idea of where we're at now. What do you make of Newcastle's home and away performance this season? And the question that I want to ask both of you is this a concern for you going into the rest of this season?
I saw this Pete, and there about a couple of days ago or so, and our away form is pretty poor. It just shows you how our home advantage is benefiting us, and that the 12th man, I guess, for games at St. James's Park. But is it a worry? No. We had a difficult start to the season, and we've had all these injuries as well, and the volume of games we've had, and even if you look, what is a worry is the next month, like the next is it 10 games or something like that in between until the transfer window opens. So it's a lot of games there to play. So that's my worry is the next 10 games, and then it's and knowing that we've only got 1 or 2 or 3 maybe back injured players back in that time. So, but no, I think we can turn it around our away form, but it doesn't make pretty reading, all right.
Chris, what are your thoughts in that? Obviously, sitting in 5th place from a home form, but 15th away form. What I'll ask you. So, I want your opinion on how you think it will fare later on in the season. But is there anything that you can pinpoint as to why maybe it looks the way it does in terms of the table?
I mean, looking at the home form, I think that doesn't really surprise me. I would expect us to be in the top 6 in terms of home form, because we've seen how we've built St James's Park into a bit of a fortress in the last 18, 24 months. So that doesn't surprise me in the slightest. In terms of the away form, there's 2 things for me which I looked at straight away. So it's actually quite staggering, isn't it, that we've gained an extra point in our away games than Luton, which is like unbelievable. I think Luton got a win at Goodison Park, didn't they? So that put them on 3 points straight away. But it's quite scary to see that we're only a point ahead of Luton. But then on the other hand, and I think someone's just put that in the chat as well, if you add an extra 3 points to that, we're 9th in the table. So it's not as damning as maybe what it looks. And let's not forget, lads, we had a difficult start to the season. There's no doubt about that. We had a tough start, and factoring in these injuries, as Daz has just said, if you look at the other table, which shows that we've got the most injuries in the league, that really shouldn't come as such a shock. For me, the most worrying thing, or the thing that makes me a bit nervous, shall I say, about the games leading up to New Year, is what players are going to be available. Now, Eddie Howe's already alluded to the fact that, yes, things will be slightly improved after the international break, and hopefully there'll be a couple of players ready for the weekend. But quite a few of our injuries aren't going to, materialise or improve until at least the new year. And that's the worrying thing for me. We've got a few long-term absentees. In terms of, am I worried about the away form? Not really. If we're still there in come January, yeah, I'll be worried. But as I say, I do think we've had some really tough games away from home, and you've got to factor in those injuries. So for me, I'm not too concerned. And like I say, we're on 5 points, and some you only need to be on 10 points to be in the top 3. So I mean, bloody Chelsea are 3rd in that table. How's that happened?
Yeah,
It
is a point, Daz, that you look at who you've played this season. We've played some tough fixtures. We've played some tough fixtures. You look at I'll take this off for a second. I'll put something else on the screen.
Tangy has it here as well in the comment.
1 second. Let me take this off.
Well, you're getting that. I'll read this comment out from Tangy. We played some tough away games through Brighton, Man City, Wolves, West Ham. We just had a tough start to the season, and to that, the injuries. We will turn it around, hopefully. Yeah,
exactly right. And I was just going to bring this up because these are the fixtures that we've got. So this is from Saturday onwards. So Chelsea, Man United, Everton away won't be as easy as what we would like it to be. Spurs away, Fulham, Luton, Forest. So you've got 3 fixtures there where you'd really want us to start picking up some points. Certainly in those 3. And then you get into
Chris is on mute.
Oh, sorry. I was going to say you'd have to say 7 points from them 3 games. You'd have to. You need at least 7 points.
For me, Chris, I want 9.
Oh, we need 9. Yeah, 1,000,000%.
I want 9 from them. I genuinely.
Just to add in as well, Pete, on those away games that we brought up, that was really helpful, that message there from Tangy. Man City, I think anyone can lose to Man City. The Brighton game was, I think we got battered 3-0 in that Brighton game, didn't we? And we fully, 3-1 it was, and we fully deserved to lose that. Wolves, we lost it near the end. West Ham, we lost. I say lost it near the end.
Drew.
Wolves, we got a late equaliser. West Ham, late equaliser. So there's 4 points straight away that we dropped just off those 2 games, and that was conceding 2 very late goals. So we'd be on 9 points, which would effectively put us in the top 6 again.
Yeah, you look at the fixtures, and I've just put January's up for a reason, because Dad, you made a good point earlier about, if we're going to make those signings and they are from Saudi, we need to get them in quickly. Because you look at those 3 fixtures in January, they're monsters. Liverpool away, New Year's Day.
That's a horrible month.
After the FA Cup, we have Man City at home, and then we go to Villa away. They're monster fixtures. But by the end of January, we would have played Villa twice, Man City twice,
Liverpool
twice. We would have gone away to Brighton. We would have gone away to Tottenham. So we've played a huge chunk of the top teams in the top half of the table, not just away from home, but you could argue the top 5, potentially top 5, top 6 teams. We'd have played Man City, Villa, who you could put in the top 6 potentially, and Liverpool. Before we'd have played them all by January. They're out the way. The other teams have then got to go and play against later on in the season. This is why on the 12th man, I mentioned it time and time again. I said, if we can navigate ourselves to Christmas and get past that point and still be in the top 8, I genuinely think that when we've got those teams out of the way, that all the other teams have then got to go and play those boys, we could genuinely move up the league, because we've got fixtures like beginning of February. What's our next game? Luton at home. There you go. And that's when you kick on. And actually, if you look through the season, after that, towards the end, we've got a run of fixtures where you would think at home and even away that we would pick up points. Why? It's because we'd have made signings. We've got players back fit. We'd have a squad where we don't know. We've got players that probably would have been starting that are now going to be left out the squad. Your Richies, your Dummets, probably not going to find themselves in the squad anymore. And then you've got a plethora of options available. There you go.
That's the key word of the night.
There you go. I think we need to start doing that. A key word of that. A plethora of options available where you can bring 5 players off the bench and they're of absolute quality, and we're going, these guys are game changers. And going into the back end of the season, whether we're in the Champions League, in Europa League, or nothing at all, we can properly attack the season.
I wonder, could we get Benzema in training with us in December, so then he can on New Year's Day they can just roll up at Anfield and score a hat trick.
Oh,
Anything's possible now.
Imagine getting Benzema. Oh my God.
Imagine that, eh?
Imagine Klopp's face.
It'd just be real fume.
Congratulations.
Yeah.
You wouldn't even get that. You get it's a disgrace.
Yeah.
It's a disgrace. It's a disgrace. That's what you get.
And we can't compete.
Yeah. That probably first.
Yeah.
Oh, fun times. I tell you what, we can have some fun. That's all I'm going to say.
For sure.
That January window is going to be mad, isn't it? It's going to be mad because we're all going to be on New Year's Day. Did you say we're playing Liverpool New Year's Day? We are, aren't we? It's just going to be like, who are we going to sign? It's going to be exciting. It's going to be very, very exciting.
What are your opinions, boys? Craig Hope the other day put some positive news out. Some people were coming back to me saying, Craig Hope and positive news, it doesn't really happen. He has. He's put out some positive news the other day. Sven Botman progressed in training well this week. We were told he wouldn't be back till February. He's been training on his own, albeit, but if his knee doesn't swell, he could well be back in contention. Sean Longstaff, in improvement, wasn't as bad as what they maybe feared it was, and ligament damage, all the rest of it could be a possibility for Chelsea. Miggy, fit and ready for Chelsea. Isak, fit and ready for Chelsea. Since then, obviously, we've got Bruno back from suspension. I think there might be one other that I'm forgetting. Harvey Barnes has been back in training. I don't know if you know if you've seen the Instagram of Jacob Murphy. He's already back training his shoulder in the gym with the weights, and in the background you could see Harvey Barnes doing some work as well in the gym too. Harvey Barnes could well be available Chelsea, if not Man United. What do you make of the situation and the potential of these boys? Certainly Miggy, Isak, Bruno, and Longstaff being back for Chelsea. Is that what you want, or would you wanted more by then?
Of course, we would have wanted more, but we have to take what we got. I think, Pete. Yeah, look, it's positive in that sense. And the other to factor, you have these players coming back, but you also have the players that we had playing for those round of matches before the international break. They've all got a chance to recharge a bit. Even Trippier as well. I don't believe whatever that story. It was a personal matter, was there, or something like that? I don't know what it was, but I think it's just to give him a bit of a break as well. Why he withdrew from the England squad. But yeah, no. Recharged and ready to go, get through these 10 matches, and then we can add a few more bodies to it as well, whether it means bringing them in, some players in from Saudi, buying them, loaning them from somewhere else, whatever the case may be, to build on what we have and go for it then in the final. Pete's smiling because it's if we can get, I agree with what you're saying, and you've said it for a while now, if we can get to Christmas in a decent enough position, then it's fun times ahead.
I do. I was laughing at the mighty win. He put, unless Pete says, I genuinely believe, or I'm not going to lie to you, don't assume that he's lying. Oh, brilliant.
Well picked up on there, mighty win.
Yeah, I never picked up on it, but yeah, brilliant stuff. But no, I think it's a great point. Chris, what are your thoughts? Injuries? Are we easing things now with these players being talked about potentially? We don't actually know for sure, though, what the situation is, but we're just hearing from, obviously, journalists. Some people say Craig Hope is not one to kind of trust. Misinformation is what's been said in the chat. What do you think? Do you think we're going to get those players back fit, or we're going to hear some alternative news?
I think the breaking news could possibly be on Harvey Barnes. I hope Harvey Barnes is back for Chelsea, but if not, obviously we'll take him back for the next game. I think having Sven Botman, sorry, I would love him back straight away, but I think he's probably a way off. I think the news that Miggy and Isak appear to be fit is just huge. Bringing back into your side Bruno, Miggy and Isak, it makes a world of difference. I think that changes the dynamic of the team. I think we go into Chelsea confident. It's just typical, isn't it? I was just looking at the fixtures that you put up before, Pete, and I'm thinking, oh God, we're playing Chelsea, who now seem to have all of a sudden clicked. And we all said they were going to click, and against Man City, they certainly looked like they clicked. We're coming up against an Everton side who seem quite buoyant. It'll be interesting to see how they react to this 10-point deduction. But albeit they've been playing quite well, and they picked up fantastic 3 points against Palace, didn't they? Which I don't think anyone was expecting. So probably not a great time to play them. But yeah, going into this Chelsea. Sorry,
Man United before that at St James's.
Yeah. It's
you confident?
I don't know. I think when we see the lineup, I mean, I'm always super confident before the game anyway. Even if we were playing Real Madrid, I'd probably be confident. I always just try and see the positive. But I just wish that, like Daz said, I just wish there was 4 or 5 back. I know it's wishful thinking. And so some people will say that we do have a lot of injuries, and there's no doubt in that. But there is a few of those players who aren't necessarily in and around the squad that much. But there's some key players out. There's some real key players out, like your Botmans, like your Wilsons. Missing them for a period of time it's going to hurt anyone. It would hurt anyone. I just can't wait to get to January. And as you say, hopefully we can kind of, find our way, pick up as many points as we can, and then we'll have something to look forward to, because hopefully we'll be bringing in some new faces, and then we'll be getting some really big players back. I think Botman will be back before January. The signs look good, but sooner the better for me, because I think having someone like him in the team, we just look so much more solid with him in the back line.
Super chat.
$0.
And we have a super chat. And it's a question. No, it's not. It's from Colin.
Oh, it's Colin. Cheers, Colin.
Love it.
He never disappoints. Never comes with a question. If Colin ever comes with a question, it has to go top of the queue. We stop whatever we're doing, even if we're announcing a signing, and we go top of the queue. But thanks, Colin.
Oh, there's been a slight update from Craig Hope 1 minute ago. The vote for the ban on loans for affiliated clubs wasn't quite 13-7. It was actually 12-8.
Oh,
there was an eighth club.
Who was the eighth
We don't
club?
know who it is. We don't know who it is. Craig, who is the eighth club? God damn you! Who is the eighth club? Boom.
Well, I wondered if, like Andy said before, I wonder if it was Palace, because Palace were the team that we're missing.
Yeah, the team that we're surprised by.
Yeah. I still can't believe that vote passed.
I know. We know who it is. Burnley.
Burnley.
So the clubs that I read out the tweet said update. Vote on loans was 12-8 in favour. Vote on commercials was 13-7. So the vote on commercials was closer. Clubs who voted against bans on loans: Newcastle, Man City, Chelsea, Forest, Sheffield United, Wolves, Everton, and Burnley. Interesting. No Palace in there. But I think we put it in the chat before, like this is days ago. There were 11 clubs that are kind of got affiliated clubs that they're linked to. So it was never going to be straightforward. It was never going to be straightforward because these teams, if they were to vote for the ban, once the legalities, because this was only a temporary a banning system in which they were going to then put something more legal together. So long term, this could have massively affected so many clubs. Now, some of these clubs need these players to come through in order to bring them into their first team, to raise money on their performances and be able to make money by selling them on or by buying them cheap and then selling them on to bigger clubs for bigger fees. Like
Chelsea especially. That's what they've lived off. That's what they've done.
And this is the thing, because I'm looking at it. See, Brighton went in there and Brighton have done the same. So that's what really surprised me. But whether they got sucked into the kind of the big club sort of like mentality, and they got kind of ring fenced by one or two of the big clubs to keep them in with them. I don't know, but
and Man United weren't on that list, were they?
I know. Oh, were they on the original list?
Yeah. No, they weren't. I just expected Man United to be on that list because Man United, I think Man United are the team who've got the Belgian links, and Chelsea have got the Dutch links, and Man United have got the Belgian link. I think that is Man United. I'm trying to think what the team is in Belgium. It's not Standard Liège. It's a team in Belgium that Man United link. Yeah, I think Chelsea. I think Chelsea's Vitesse Arnhem in. Or is Vitesse?
No, Chelsea's Vitesse Arnhem. I think Man United's Standard Liège.
Oh, is it Standard Liège?
Yeah, I think Man United, or if it's not now, it used to be.
It used
because
to
they
be.
used to loan players to Standard Liège, but Chelsea have Vitesse Arnhem. Arnhem.
Yeah.
But really interesting. A lot of people have mentioned this point is that people are surprised that Man United are not on that list because Jim Ratcliffe is part owner of Nice.
Nice.
And on top of that, They are adamant that they want to. I think Janos just put in the chat, Neurona has links with Nice. And on top of that, they are desperate to sign Jean-Claire Todibo in January. So why would you not vote against any type of ruling like that? Because if they voted in favour of that ruling and it got put in place, surely they wouldn't be able to sign Jean-Claire Todibo. Or they'd have to wait until after January to get Jim Ratcliffe into the club, and they want him into the club to get their system in place and to get everything sorted to be able to buy players. It just doesn't. Again, Man United operating on absolute clown levels by not voting, and they've been lucky that there's 7 other teams that have done their job for them, really. And going back to my point, I would love nothing more than to snap Jean-Claire Todibo from under the noses of Nice, not only because he's a quality centre-back, it's off Man United a little bit more.
Right, let's switch topic again. And Pete, I'm going to go to the other topic that you have here as well, the pictures, because I think it's a good one to touch on before we start to close up for the night. But what way were you planning on introducing this one? I know there was a good article in the Chronicle that I read. I can't remember the guy's name, but it was. I'll summarize my version of it. Was that this guy who designs kits, he's worked with Nike and Puma in the past, but he was talking to the people at Adidas, and he's saying he's got an inside view of what's to come, and it's going to be massive. But he obviously. He can't say anything more about it, but I think these are the kits that he produced himself. That what he'd like to see himself, not what's coming. No one knows what's coming. But and Chris, you fell in love with these as well.
Well, to be fair, the kits. I think Chris, you might have dropped those kits earlier. To me, you might have put them in there, which is why I grabbed them, because I'd actually not seen those kits. But I tell you what, I love them. I absolutely love them. Boys, talk to me. Which one's your favourite? And is there anything you would change on any of those kits? Any colours, codes, any whatever? But I tell you what, Chris, when you drop them to me, you drop them to Daz as well. Wow, unreal. Yeah.
Chris, I'm going to let you talk about them, but I just bring your attention. This and each of the kits, there's a different crest.
Yes.
So that's what he did as part of his kind of concept of kits. But talk us through it, Chris.
Yeah, but they were talking, weren't they, about using different club crests, and the reason behind that is obviously for branding. Like they were speaking ages ago about the fact that clubs now are tending to go for a more simpler badge, and there is rumour that we are going to have a new badge for next season. And the reason being is because obviously it's easier to mass produce, because our badge is quite intricate, isn't it? It's very detailed. And, you know, if you look at, for example, the middle kit, which is based on the 95, 96 season, I believe, the Ginola kit, as we all know it as, that has got the NUFC. Is it NUFC or NUF? People pronounce it differently, but yeah, it's the NUFC in like a circle. I know you probably can't see that very well. But that obviously is the old style badge. The badge to the right, which is on the Norwich looking kit, that is really a blast from the past. That one, that was a kit that we had years and years ago, which everyone loved. And that is the badge, the circle badge with the magpie in the middle, with just Newcastle United written within the circle. And then obviously on the home kit, you've got the traditional Newcastle United badge. I quite like the Adidas sign just below the badge. But above the seller sponsor. But that kit, to me, that reminds me, I don't know about you boys, but the one player I think of when I see that kit is Obafemi Martins. When we had the blue trim. Again, I can't think, was that 06, 07 maybe? My memory's not the best, but yeah, that home kit particularly I really like, and I like the gold and the black and white. I think that just goes really well. Obviously, to be honest, boys, I'd probably get all three. I love all three. I think all three are brilliant. I really like them. I mean, if you push me to pick a favorite one, It's hard to go away from the middle one, really. Like the middle one is just a classic. It's just the middle one's brilliant. But I do really like the home one. I know a few people say they don't like the home one, but I really like the home one, and I like the sky blue trim. I do like that. But then equally, for our older generation fans, the green and yellow one really brings back the memories of the good times, and it's just something different, isn't it? It's something different, and it's bringing back a blast from the past. But even the Adidas sign, it's a traditional Adidas sign, like the old logo. So it's just those three would be fantastic. And correct me if I'm wrong, boys. Don't know if you've seen this, but apparently the third one is pretty nailed on. Like it's been rumored that the third one, so the yellow and green one, is definitely going to be happening in some capacity. It may not look like that, but they reckon that is the what they're going to go for. Obviously, the green linking in with Saudi as well, so it kind of goes hand in hand.
You have to. I was going to say you have to keep that. For me, like I love the middle kit because it just reminds me of Les Ferdinand, David Ginola. We brought it back a few years ago, and I've still got it upstairs.
That's a really nice kit. That
I absolutely love it. It's one of my favourites. But I never got a chance to see Newcastle play in that third kit because I wasn't. I was a kid. I was a baby when they were wearing that kit, and I would love Newcastle to have a third kit like that. We had a yellow kit when we were in the Championship, which was an absolute disgrace.
It did grow on you, that one, though. I don't know about you, but it did grow on me a little bit.
It did it with me, mate. I'm sorry. The only thing that I loved about it is the fact that Andy Carroll just scored goals in it during that season. He just smashed it. I'm sure you loved it more than me, Chris.
I mean, we had a lot of this going on as well. A lot of this going on.
Yes, Kevin Nolan.
But that kit is beautiful. It's such an amazing kit, and like the Adidas that we see on the Newcastle. The Newcastle home kit is going to be the badge. Like they're not going to do the old school badges that have been mocked up there. It's going to be the badge that's on the home kit. It will be for Adidas because that's the new logo. So I think maybe on retro kits they might go for the old Adidas, but certainly not on anything new. And I think it's something that we have to remember on that. But any kit like that, like you get in my money. You're getting it. You're like, even if it's tight, even if it's a difficult month. Sorry to the wife, she's probably upstairs. Thankfully for me, but you're gonna get my money.
Gotta get it.
It's gonna happen.
Yeah, I think they'll definitely the kind of, you want to call it pink and purple kind of kit, the one in the middle there. I think they're going to bring a version back of some description. It's a no-brainer. It's anyone with half a brain will do something similar to that. So that's going to happen, and I look forward to what they do bring back there. And as you, Chris, I like the little blue part of the home kit, but I'm not a fan of the badge in the middle. I don't like the crest in the middle. And look at I think they'll do something with kind of green, and it would make sense to link back to the old kits as well, green and yellow, and the Saudi link with the green maybe. And I think someone had in the chat as well. It's Man United fans might be buying that one then as well. So they like a bit of green and yellow. Yano was in with that one, first in with that one. But that's, and I suppose the other thing that I read, whether I'm not 100% sure if it's true or not, but that Newcastle are going to be in their elite category, and they might be lower tier of the elite category. I guess they have different tiers, but we're in the elite up there with Bayern Munich and a few more. So bring that on, and whatever that entails, we'll get to hear more about that in time, I guess. So,
and I'll tell you what, Taz. I mean, it comes as no surprise that we're in the elite tier. But even if we're in the lower elite tier, people are saying the lower elite tier, there's not as much merchandise. Give it a year, that'll change. Because if they produce kits like that, they are going to literally fly off the That's the word I'm looking for.
Shelves.
The shelves. That's the word I'm looking for. Yeah, I can say plethora, but I can't say shelves. They're going to fly off the shelves, and we're going to sell loads because those as Pete said, it's a no-brainer. You just see it and just go, I need those kits. I need them because they're fantastic. They're everything that we've wanted for a long time, and we've been recently comparing. Is the PSG win the best win since Barcelona? Is it better than Barcelona? To then have the kits to kind of reminisce about those times and potentially, I mean, I'm maybe talking ahead of myself here, but to potentially be lifting trophies in those kits, we will fly. We will fly, and those kits will go off the shelves quicker than that.
And you remember what Murdad said in the documentary as well. He wants to be able to buy a Newcastle kit in Timbuktu. So if you are listening in Timbuktu and you are a Newcastle fan, shout out to the Timbuktu mags. Yes, the plethora of you that are watching right now. We all have it in now. But yeah, bring it on. Looking forward to that. Well, I'm going to jump to tell people what's happening next, if that's okay, because I think we're going to wind things up because we're not finished yet. We've got loads of shows coming this week. First up is tomorrow, though. What's happening tomorrow, Pete?
We're back. Away Days is back. A slightly earlier preview, and I'm sure you're going to understand why in just a second it's an earlier preview. But great to have couple of guests on, really. We've got Lewis coming back from Chelsea Fans TV, but we've got Charlie. And if you're not seeing Charlie on Side TV and also Savage channel as well, he's our resident Blue brother, Chelsea, massive Chelsea fan, goes to home and away as much as he possibly can. Great lad, and good knowledge on football as well. So a new guest to come and join us to talk and preview the Chelsea game. He's really excited to come onto the channel. He's obviously following the channel and talks about the channel a lot from Loaded Mag perspective. And now he's coming on. So we're going to get the lowdown from all things Chelsea tomorrow night and buzzing for it.
Nice one. Make or break. Break time is over. Bring it on. That's on tomorrow. Can't miss that one. And another one you can't miss and you won't want to miss. And if you do miss it, you're going to be catching up. Whether you love him, whether you hate him, whether you despise him, whatever. You cannot miss him. And he's back. We're back. It's a fully loaded transfer show. It's really kicking off when this happens. It's that man, Sean Casey. Sean Casey, like I said, is back. And he will be to tell us a few stories. He has a few stories to tell, he tells us. So look forward to that. I'm sure he's at home rewriting his script now because of the news today. But I think he said on Twitter as well, he knew about this vote yesterday. So that's how far ahead of the game Sean is. But yeah, look forward to that, hearing what Sean has to say and who we can rule in, who we can rule out, or more. Let's see. So stay tuned for that one. So that is Thursday night at 8:00. Then we'll be back again on Saturday after the Chelsea game with the result, with the reaction show for whatever the result may be. Hopefully toasting up, hopefully all smiling faces, and we'll be down to 9 games left then before the window opens. But boys, I think that is it.
I just want to give just a very quick shout out. He's not been in the chat very much recently, but a big shout out to NUFC Spartan. He's just dropped me a message. He does still watch the show.
Good man.
Yeah,
he
just wanted to big up the chat and just say great to obviously watch the show. He's still enjoying everything that we do, put the content out. I'm sure I've just said to him, just pop back on the chat and show your face. So maybe you will in the shows to come. Maybe it's tomorrow, maybe it's Thursday. But yeah, great to have him back. And he's a great guy. And yeah,
but great to hear who he thinks we might bring in from Saudi. Actually, that would be interesting.
Yeah, that would be good.
Get in touch. Right. That is it. Chris, since you haven't said it for a while,
Haven't I?
go for it. Go for it. And yeah, no one's getting a t-shirt for doing this either. Go on, go for it.
How'd you like that?
Good night, everyone. See you tomorrow.
See ya.
How you like